Today I will read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins for 15 minutes. We go. I needed to start training or I would burn out on the trail during the hurt 100 and there would be no bad water. I had been reading up on how to prepare for ultras and knew it was vital to get in some 100 miles weeks. I only had about a month to build my strength and endurance before race day on January 14th. My feet and shins were not even close to right. So I came up with a new method to stabilize both the bones in my feet and my tendons. I bought high performance inserts, cut them down to fit flush with the soles of my feet, and taped my ankles, heels, and lower shins with compression tape. I also slid a small heel wedge into my shoes to correct my running posture and ease pressure. After what I have endured, it took a lot of props to get me running nearly pain free. Getting 100-mile weeks in while holding down a steady job is not easy, but there was no excuse. My 16-mile commute to work from Chula Vista to Coronado became my go-to run. Chula Vista has a split personality when I lived there. There was the nicer, newer middle class section where we lived, which was surrounded by a concrete jungle of gritty, dangerous streets. That is the part I ran through at dawn, beneath freeway overpasses and alongside Home Depot shipping bays. This was not your tourist brochure's version of sunny San Diego. I sniffed car exhaust and rotting garbage, spotted skittering rats, and dozed sleepless homeless camps before reaching Imperial Beach, where I picked up the 7-mile Silver Strand bike path. It banked south past Coronado's landmark hotel, the turn of the Century Hotel del Coronado, and a crop of luxury condo towers which overlooked the same wide strip of sand shared by Naval Special Warfare Command, where I spent the days jumping out of airplanes and shooting guns. I was living the Navy SEAL legend trying to keep it real. I ran that 16-mile stretch at least 3 times a week. Some days I ran home too, and on Fridays I added a ruck run. Instead the radio pouch of my standard issue rucksack, I slid two 25-pound weights and run fully loaded for as many as 20 miles to build quad strength. I loved waking up at 5 a.m. and started work with 3 hours of cardio already in the bank, while most of my teammates had not even finished their coffee. It gave me a mental edge, a better sense of self awareness, and a ton of self confidence, which made me a better SEAL instructor. That's what getting up at the ass crack of dawn and putting out will do for you. It makes you better in all facets of your life. During my first real deal week of training, I ran 77 miles. The following week, I ran 109 miles, including a 12-mile run on Christmas Day. The next week, I pushed it to 111.5, include a 19-mile run on New Year's Day, and the following week, I backed off to taper my legs but still got 56.5 miles in. All of those were road miles, but man, I had coming up was a trial run, and I had never run on a trail before. I would bushwhacked a bunch, but I had not run distance on single track with a clock running. The Hurt 100 was a 20-mile circuit house, and I had heard that only a slim slice of those who start the race finish all 5 laps. This was my last chance to pad my Badwater resume. I had a lot riding on a successful outcome, and there was so much about the race and about ultra running that I still did not know. I flew into Honolulu a few days early and checked into Helikoya, a military hotel where active duty and veterans stay, with their families when they come through town. I had studied the maps and knew the basics when it came to the terrain, but I had not seen it up close, so I drove over to the Hawaii Nature Center the day before the race and started into the velvety Jade Mountains. All I could see was a steep cut of red earth disappearing into the dense green. I walked up the trail for a half mile, but there was only so far I could hike. I was tapering, and the first mile was straight uphill. Everything beyond that would have to remain a mystery for a little longer. There were just three aid stations on the 20-mile course, and most athletes were self reliant and dialed in their own nutritional regimen. I was still a neophyte and had no clue what I needed when came to fuel. I met a woman at the hotel at 5:30 a.m. on race day morning as we were about to leave. She knew I was a rookie and asked what I had brought with me to keep myself going. I show her my magical stash of flavored energy gels and my camelback. You didn't bring salt pills? She asked, shocked. I shrugged. I shrugged. I didn't know what the fuck a salt pill was. She poured 100 of them into my palm. Take two of these every hour. They will keep you from cramping. Roger that. She smiled and shook her head like she could see my fucked up future. I had a strong start and felt great, but not long after the race began, I knew I was facing a monster course. I am not talking about the grade and elevation variance. I expected this. It was all the rocks and roots that took me by surprise. I was lucky that it did not rain in a couple of days because all I had to wear were my standard running shoes, which had precious little tread. Then my camelback broke at mile 6. I shook it off and kept hammering, but without a water source, I would have to rely on the aid stations to hydrate, and they were spaced miles apart. I did not even have my support crew of one yet. Kate was chilling on the beach and didn't plan on showing up until later in the race, which was my own fault. I enticed her to come along by promising a vacation, and early that morning I insisted she enjoy Hawaii and leave the suffering to me. With or without a camelback, my mindset was to make it from aid station to aid station and see what happens. Before the race started, I heard people talking about Karl Meltzer. I had seen him stretching out and warming up. His nickname was the Speed Goat, and he was trying to become the first person ever to complete the race in less than 24 hours. For the rest of us, there was a 36-hour time limit. My first lap looked 4.5 hours, and I felt okay afterwards, which was to be expected considering all the long days I had come done in preparation. But I was also concerned because each lap demanded an ascent and descent of around 5,000 vertical feet, and the amount of focus it took to pay attention to every step, so I did not turn an ankle amped up by my mental fatigue. Each time my medical tendon twinkled, it felt like a raw nerve exposed to the wind, and I knew one stumble could fold my wobbly ankle and end my race. I felt that pressure every single moment, and as a result, I burned more calories than expected, which was a problem because I had very little fuel, and without a water source, I could not hydrate effectively. Between laps, I guzzled water and with my belly sloshing started my second loop with a slow jog up that 1 mile long 800-foot climb into the mountains, basically straight uphill. That's when it started to rain. Our red earth trail became mud within minutes. The soles of my shoes were coated with it and slick as skis. I sloshed through shin deep puddles, skidded down descents, and slipped on ascents. It was a full body sport, but at least there was water. Whenever I was dry, I tipped my head back, opened wide, and tasted the rain, which filtered through a triple canopy jungle that smelled of leaf rot and shit. The feral funk of fertility invaded my nostrils, and all I could think of was the fact that I had to run 4 more fucking laps. At mile 30, my body reported some positive news, or maybe it was the physical manifestation of a backhanded compliment. The tendon pain in my ankles had vanished because my feet had swollen enough to stabilize those tendons. Was this a good thing long term? Probably not. But you take what you can get on an ultra circuit where you have to roll with whatever gets you from mile to mile. Meanwhile, my quads and calves ached like they had been thumped with a sledgehammer. Yeah, I had done a lot of running, but most of it, including my ruck runs on pancake, flat terrain in San Diego, not on slick jungle trails. Kate was waiting for me by the time I completed my second lap, and after spending a relaxing morning on Waikiki Beach, she watched in horror as I materialized from the mist like a zombie from the Walking Dead. I sat and guzzled as much water as I could, but then word has gotten out that it was my first trail race. Have you ever had a very public fuck up or were in the midst of a shitty day, week, month, year, yet people around you felt obliged to comment on the source of your humiliation? Maybe they reminded you of all the ways you could have ensured a very different outcome. Now imagine consuming that negativity but having to run 60 miles, 60 more miles in a sweety jungle rain on top of it. Does that sound like fun? Yeah. I was the talk of the race. Well, me and Karl Meltzer. Nobody could believe he was gunning for a sub 24-hour experience, and it was equally baffling that I showed up to one of the most treacherous trail races on the planet undersupplied and unprepared. With no trail races under my belt, by the time I began my third loop, there were only 40 athletes out of nearly 100 left in the race, and I started running with a guy named Luis Escobar. For the 10th time, I heard the following words. So, it's your first trail race? He asked. I nodded. You really picked the wrong. I know, I said. It is just such a technical. Right, I am a fucking idiot. I have heard that a lot today. That's okay, he said. We are all of we are all of bunch of idiots out here, man. He handed me a water bottle. He was carrying 3 of them. Take this. I heard about Camelback. This being my second race, I was starting to understand the rhythm of ultra. It's a constant dance between competition and camaraderie, camarade, camarader, which reminded me of camaraderie, which reminds me of birds. Louis and I were both racing the clock and each other, but we wanted one another to make it. We were in it alone together, and he was right. We were a couple of fucking idiots. Darkness descended and left us with a pitch black jungle night. Running side by side, the glow of our headlamps merged and shed a wider light. But once we separated, all I could see was a yellow ball bouncing on the trail ahead of me. Countless top trip wires, shine high logs, stick roots, lichen wrapped rocks remained out of sight. I slipped, stumbled, fell, and cursed. Jungle noises were everywhere. It was not just the insect world that had my attention. In Hawaii, on all the islands, bow hunting for wild pig in the mountains is a major pastime, and master hunters often leave their pit bulls chained up in the jungle to develop a nose for swine. I heard every one of those hungry bulls snapping and growling, and I heard some pigs squealing too. I smelled their fear and rage. This piss, their piss and shit, their soul fucking breath. That's it for the day.